What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Uberkooledgarage. On this week's episode, we're going to continue on Ryan's exhaust and completely finish it off with a couple small minor details that we'll get into in the next couple upcoming videos. But it's been a while since I've posted. I've had quite a bit going on. I've had problems with his car. I've had problems with my personal cars. I'm trying to get my truck running. That way I can drive it to work back and forth, since my daily driver is having issues at the moment. Sacramento, I'm in Sacramento, California. The last 3 weeks have been absolutely brutal with the heat. It's been 3 weeks solid of well over 100-degree temperatures, so it's been kind of hard to get out into the garage, especially after I work in construction during the day. So working construction during the day in the heat and then coming home and trying to work on all of this stuff is pretty difficult. I've been trying to get as much done as I possibly can on everything. On the upcoming videos, they might be kind of spaced out a little bit more. I ended up maybe picking up another job that will keep me busy, so I'll be running 2 jobs during the day and then during the night, and possibly on weekends as well. So gonna be very busy for probably the next couple months. But I will try and get out as much content as possible. I am definitely going to try and knock out Ryan's car as fast as possible. As long as this solution that is sitting next to me works out, we should be looking pretty darn good on his car, getting everything wrapped up as fast as possible. So let's go ahead and finish off this exhaust, and hope you guys enjoy. You guys figured out that I absolutely love this thing. It is awesome. So ended up going and ordering some new tools. It's a giant one. So 19-inch Eastwood bead roller. Comes with a handful of dies, which is super awesome. I will definitely be ordering more dies to do more things. But this thing is absolutely incredible. So just kind of messing around with it. Can definitely get some good bends and good beads all the way around everything. So you can see that that one's stepped up all the way down. So this will help me make the firewall stuff for Ryan's car. It'll also help me make a ton of parts for the Bug. So I have like floor sections that I need to fix in the Bug, so I can actually just make my own pieces now instead of trying to piece together other bits and welding them together and then grinding them smooth and then body filling them. So now I can actually make my own pieces, which is awesome. So they do sell a motorized crank for this that I will probably order later on in the future, but for now the hand crank on this works pretty darn good. Just got to get the hang of it and learn how to maneuver parts in the actual die itself to get them a little bit cleaner and a little bit better. But it'll definitely help me in all of my future projects. And on top of that, I have another tool that is in the mail that it should be here probably after this episode comes out. And that's probably also going to require me going and picking up another tool or two. So very, very, very excited about getting stuff to make my life easier. So thank you, Eastwood, for supplying a super awesome deal for 4th of July week. So let's go ahead and finish off the exhaust stuff, and then we can hop into Actual exhaust looks pretty good. I'm gonna end up, once I get everything set, I'll end up trimming this out a little bit more, get the same gap all the way around. That way it still has a little bit of room to maneuver and wiggle. And if I have to, I will fill in the bumper slot there, just to finish it off, get it all nice and clean. So my issue with all of this is if you come under here, so that pipe comes down, has a couple pie cuts, comes across, has a couple more pie cuts, goes into this sleeve, which I think I'm going to make a bolt in. That way you can pull the mufflers off separate from the rest of the exhaust. Otherwise it might be a little difficult to get the exhaust off of the car. So, and then it does a 180 there, goes into the back of the muffler, and then up top here you got pie cuts that make kind of an S shape, and those go into the mufflers. Well, the big problem is we're pretty darn close to the tire. So I don't really like how close it is to the tire. So I've been trying to kind of figure out where I can put the mufflers that aren't going to be in the way of everything. The problem with that is on the other side, the coolant pipe drops down, and if I lay the mufflers flat, horizontal this way, the exhaust actually runs directly into the coolant pipe. So I can't really do that. So I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm probably going to have to pop these tack welds off of this and maybe this one back here and kind of adjust the exhaust to sit more at an angle, which means I might have to trim a couple more things on the top side and the engine bay metal. I might have to trim that a little bit and then turn the exhaust this way a little bit and try and reposition that U a little bit better. That way it sits in there nice and smooth, and then we can put a bolt clamp on that. I have thought about mounting the mufflers solid to the car and ordering some flex pipes and just run a flex pipe back here. That way these can't move, which means these wouldn't move, and we can get the gap a little bit tighter around the actual exhaust exit. And then the rest of the exhaust can flex around with the motor where it needs to. We'd still have hangers probably right here and maybe one down here. So I don't know. I'm still kind of throwing stuff around in my brain trying to figure out the best solution for this. But after that, I think we should be pretty darn close to starting the car. So I need to get my brain to thinking and figure this out. Got the entire exhaust pulled out and welded up. Went ahead and added all of the hangers to everything. Everything looks and works out pretty darn good. This was way more work than I was anticipating, but it turned out absolutely awesome. The second half was definitely way more difficult than I was thinking it was going to be. Thought it was just going to be super quick, loop around, tie in the mufflers. It ended up being a lot more to it than just that. Just sitting here trying to figure out exactly where to go and how to go with the coolant pipes and all of that. in place. Wanted to loop everything around them, and it was definitely a hassle to get it. And this is definitely a lot more welding than first anticipated as well. This is probably the most welding that I have done in a long time. It's been probably a couple months since I've done this much welding. They're definitely not Instagram welds, but I did hook up the smoke machine to each one of these pipes, made sure that there was no leaks anywhere. If you guys didn't know, the smoke machine that I have puts out 16 to 17 psi of pressure and loads in smoke. So it gets to a point where it starts blowing off past everything. So it was blowing off the tape that I had holding all of the joints. So couldn't find any leaks in the actual piping itself. So everything looks really, really good. I think I still might build a heat shield for behind the X-pipe and coat it in probably some of the gold heat wrap tape. So everything turned out pretty darn good. We'll make that panel after we get it on the car. And if there are vibration issues, then I'll probably add a bracket from this pipe to the actual exhaust exit on both sides. Just make a bolt-in tab, that way those two bolt together. I gotta go pick up some exhaust clamps for the slip joints. There was no way to get this entire system in all at one time with the coolant pipes in place. And it would be pretty difficult with how large this is to get it up underneath the car, get it slid up into place, and bolt it by myself. So everything kind of works pretty easy. It slides in and out pretty easy. It's a little on the heavy side, but everything on this car so far is pretty darn heavy. I mean, the motor's heavy, the trans is heavy, the rear suspension's heavy, the exhaust is heavy. So it's quite a bit of weight in this car compared to probably a stock one, and definitely compared to the Bug. But we'll go ahead and get all this stuff heat wrapped, and then we will get it installed in the car, and hopefully I can rig up some wires and we can fire this thing up. So we'll do all that and cross my fingers, cross your fingers, see if we can get the first start. Got everything all bolted up and set up. It turned out awesome. So I actually really like the way that everything turned out. Of course, I got the cover dirty again. I'll go ahead and wipe all that down, get everything cleaned up after it is running. But you can see the heat wrap turned out awesome. Everything looks really good. Exhaust loops around, comes down, goes up. So everything turned out really good. Like I said, there is a couple things that that I still want to do. If the exhaust moves around too much with the motor, I'll add in that clamp there. I do want to, since the oil filter sits above the heat wrap on the exhaust, I want to make a shield that comes down. That way when you unscrew the oil filter, the oil drains off of that, not the actual header itself, because the heat wrap will soak in all that oil and it will catch on fire eventually. So I'm going to make a shield for that. That way it's got a drain port for the oil filter. And we'll see about making the heat shield to go in between the front cover and the X-pipe here. I might actually make it so then it hose clamps onto these right here, which will hold the heat wrap a little bit better than the stainless zip ties, and it'll protect the oil that is in the front cover. So I think what we need to do now is just halfway plug in some wires and see if this thing starts. Okay guys, so we got gas in it. I got a couple wires coming out of the door. Went ahead and just wire netted some stuff together. Got everything all ran as soon as I plugged the battery in. The relay for the ECU kicked on. So if I hit this switch here, we should hear the fuel pump come on, which there is no fuel pump. So hang on, let me diagnose this real quick and we'll see what we got. I'm back. So I ended up hooking up the fuel pump to one of the relays, which is not the case. Both of those relays are for two different fans. I also went ahead and picked up the controller. So now if we hit the switch, we should have fuel pump. Still no fuel pump, but the controller's on. So, that's kind of weird. So the whole controller works. So maybe it just primes when you turn the ignition. I don't know. We'll have to figure it out. The next time I'll just get it ready and then turn the key. Unfortunately, I have been fighting this thing for about a week and a couple days. We're having an issue with the ECU. It is a really, really old style ECU. You can't even really get the programming for it anymore. It takes a special serial cable and an older Windows computer to tie into it to try and get into the tune to figure out what exactly is going on. So we are getting fuel injectors are working, the starter's working. The only issue that I am having is I cannot get any spark in this thing at all. So I checked the whole system. I have 12 volts to the coil on plugs. I have a ground signal. I have RPM signal. I have all of that, and this thing will not spark. I have tried plugging in my coils out of my car because I know that they work. I've tried different spark plugs. I've pretty much been through everything. I've pinned out the entire ECU to see if maybe there was a loose wire somewhere. Nothing. So, unfortunately, with everything that is going on with this, I'm not going to be able to get it started on this ECU. So, I have talked to Ryan. Unfortunately, you know, he didn't just buy this ECU, but he bought this ECU for this car, and it just seems to be no good. So we talked to Ryan. We ended up ordering a different ECU. So once that gets in here, we'll go ahead and get everything all wired up and calibrated up. So unfortunately, that means that this motor has to come out again. So the crank trigger for the sensor is in the back of the motor. I might be able to dig through old videos and count the teeth on that trigger. That way I can input it into the new ECU. If I can't find it, then I'm going to have to pull the motor, pull the clutch, pull the flywheel, count the number of teeth, and put all this back in. I'm also going to have to weld in a stainless steel bung for a O2 sensor in this car. That way we can tune it, get all of that set up, and I'm also probably going to have to put in a intake air temperature sensor in the system, which he ordered as well. So until we kind of get all that stuff, I'm gonna probably hop on sheet metal stuff and dig through videos and see if I can find the trigger wheel. I did end up finding a belt for this. The only unfortunate thing with that is this Subaru motor is a 6-rib belt. Well, nobody has 6-rib belts that are this small, so we went ahead and went with a 5-rib. So you can see it's missing one of the ribs there. So the 5-rib belt works out absolutely perfect. It's nice and tight, looks super good. So that's really cool on that end. And we'll just start on doing some sheet metal. Alright guys, so unfortunately that's all I have for you on this week's episode. Very, very disappointed that we weren't able to start the car up. I tried seriously everything to get this thing to go, and it just wouldn't. And with the technology being as old as it is, I can't plug in a computer to figure out what's going on with it. So, we have a solution. Hopefully it works out, but the whole deal kind of really sucked. So let's go ahead and push forward, try and get this car as far and as close to done as possible and get it back to Ryan. It has been way too long. Definitely was not expecting everything to go the way that it has, but I'm trying to knock it out for him, get him back his car, and then we can get back into the bug, which I got some big plans coming for that car. Stay tuned for that because it is going to be absolutely ridiculous. So, thank you guys for watching. Thanks for subscribing, liking, commenting. All you guys are awesome that stayed to the end of the video. So, until the next one, peace out, guys.